like a lot on a lot of different levels. Boy, I love the moment here, and I love the graphic quality of this. I love the way the subject is separating from the background, even though the background has quite a bit going on back there. This one was created by Ramon, who's an intermediate photographer. He says he took this picture this summer when he went with his kids to the local swimming pool, and he noticed his son was playing with his friends, and they were moving their heads backwards and creating some great shapes for the water drops. And he said he was just trying to capture the moment. He shot this with a 70 to 200 zoom lens, shot wide open. This is an f4 ISL series Canon lens, so he shot wide open at f4, exposed the file for a 500th of a second. It's a great thing to know here in terms of the focal length and freezing the water like this. The effective focal length was 160 millimeters. Don't know the camera body. I love the moment, and the quality of light here is what's really helping this shot work. This real strong side light is not only creating specularity on the water droplets that's helping to separate that from the background, and the background back there looks like maybe it's whatever this is, maybe it's more either in the shade or it's just a darker subject, but you get this real strong side lighting, sort of rim light effect on the boy, and that lighting with the real bright here and then much darker back here is mimicking what's happening with one of the main subjects, which is the water droplet. Something else that's interesting to me about this image is these two lines. They could in any other situation just become overwhelming, but in this case, because of the arms, to me, they're a real neat balancing element in the top of the frame that rhymes a big part of the main subject. There's a shape back here that's sort of interesting, almost looks like a human figure. There are a lot of really beautiful tones in this image. I mean, I love high contrast, and there are just a lot of rich tones. I don't really ever get anywhere in this image where I feel like there's muddy gray. I feel like there's always sort of a movement of tone, even in areas that do go, sort of close to some kind of a true medium. You still have really beautiful local contrast, even in the out of focus areas. Two things about this one I wish I could change. I think I might just clone out whatever that is and really sort of let these lines in the image play a little bit more. And boy, I wish that this was one where Ramon could have like shot two shots real quick and kind of put them together and made a square um, a square pano. I know that's an oxymoron, but you get my point. I wish we could see the information that is essentially out here so that this sort of could complete a little bit more, and then the hand would kind of maybe even come out and almost touch this point where the water droplets continue. I mean, you have essentially a golden spiral here. We talk about the golden mean and the golden spiral. You have one here, and there's such a strong implication of energy from both the arm and the water droplets, and it does make me think, unfortunately, a little bit about what's out here, but it's just so dramatic and such a great moment that it's an amazing image. Anyway, from me, just a really great job of using quality of light and focal length and moment to capture a really neat image. Real powerful landscape shot here, and this image was submitted by Ned, who's an intermediate photographer. Ned says he was at the old fishing pier at Wrightsville Beach in North Carolina right before sunrise and took this picture. He used a Nikon D300, a 10 millimeter lens, a very, very wide lens here, and I love the quality of line. In big scenic landscapes, leading line can play a huge part, and you have this just outrageous leading line that's working on one of the major diagonals here, and that leads out to one of the other main subjects, or if not the main subject, the pier, and the image has several other very, very powerful, simple moving lines, and these ideas play off of each other in a way that's really beautiful, sort of leading out, creating a space shape in here, and then coming across. It's kind of moving us all the way through the whole image, just in a big, simple kind of V zigzag shape. There's some really beautiful rhythms in this image. There's a rhythm of sort of a series of triangles that are setting up that's really beautiful. This one is super obtuse along with this one. They're still there. There's a really beautiful marbled feeling in the clouds that plays off of the leading edge of the line here, the white clouds and the leading edge of the wave. And the other thing that I'm enjoying is the way the negative space up here and this negative space is kind of bookending, but then it's dynamic with this being kind of smooth and this having all this texture. This real powerful feeling of texture. It's interesting how there's sort of a texture change all along in here, and that helps to create depth in the image. Beautiful color, blue and orange, really awesome. Color complement, love seeing almost a pure white here and pure black. I love how close Ned got. I mean, you know, the camera must almost be touching the ground here, and that's really making the foreground palpable. I do wish I could change a couple of things on this one. I'd love to see a variation where the water maybe kind of came even a little more up into this area, or this whole line kind of moves in a real dramatic way and kind of breaks this negative space up maybe a little bit more. Don't know if that would work, but I'd like to see a variation like that. And I'd love to come in and kind of create a little bit of a different gradient back here. This may just be the way the sky was naturally in terms of the brightest part of the sky, but almost looks kind of like a halo effect over the pier, and I'd love to kind of even that out and change that gradient a little bit. Really stunningly beautiful, very engaging, inviting landscape image. And we're going to wrap up with this image. This image was submitted by Nigel, and Nigel is an advanced photographer from Australia, and there's a pretty long backstory on this one, so I'm just going to give you the short version of it. Nigel got some information about a waterfall that was supposed to be incredible, and he spent a ton of time getting there, and it turned out it was like a foot tall coming over a rock, and that kind of put him into a dark place from a creative standpoint, and then he just kind of snapped out of that and decided to go with it, and you know, said after sort of getting over that this image for him made kind of the whole experience worth it, and boy, I cannot agree more. Nigel shot this with a Canon 350D. He used 135 millimeter focal length and exposed the file using ISO 100, stopping down to f16 for 8 seconds, and intentionally underexposed this by 2 stops. And that's one of the things I love about this image. Is it's a low-key image, which means the image is keyed to black. We don't see much of this anymore. With digital, we've become so overwhelmed or fascinated or bought into the idea of getting detail everywhere, and it can really make your photography boring. And you know, in the Next Step Creativity workshops, one of the things we say to people is, you know, if you want to just go out and be creative in the most basic of ways for the next 30 minutes, for 15 minutes, overexpose everything that you shoot by 3 or 4 stops, and then take another 15 minutes and underexpose everything you shoot by 3 or 4 stops. You may be just amazed at what happens in some of these shots, how some things start to get isolated, how mood changes, how you can just abstract with exposure. And you know, this image, in some respects, is very simple, but I say that as a compliment. It's very elegant. It's just working off of one of the major diagonals and kind of this really beautiful S-curve. You have this really beautiful feeling underexposed here of almost like moonlight, this really beautiful sort of spotlight effect on these rocks, creating a lot of dimension and form in the rocks, and then it just kind of tails off into mystery, but there's detail. It's very, very subtle, but there's detail up in these areas. And I love the detail here of the fern. You know, the fern is such an ancient plant. And with this basically being underexposed and just kind of this moving water that can be anywhere, not only could this be sort of anywhere on the planet, it could also kind of be any time. You can just imagine this almost being some kind of prehistoric photograph that's been recorded. And I just love the way that my mood is so deeply affected by the low-key feeling here, and the feeling of the mystery, and then that combined with simplicity, and then with the fern and with the monochrome. It's just a very, very powerful image, and love to see a whole series of images like this from Nigel. This is one of these images to me that's the beginning of an incredible portfolio that would make an amazing show. So I want to say a big thank you to all of the photographers who submitted this really sort of beautiful gallery of images, and want to say another huge thank you to all of you for being a part of the Mindful Eye. And we will see you tomorrow, everybody. Have a great holiday weekend.